from Housing and Economic Rights Advocates, and we're just so appreciative that she's here to give you guys some information today, and let her kick off.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming on a Saturday morning. I know this is, if you're here, it means you're probably a little bit stressed out about your home or how things are going. Things are feeling a little tight, or maybe you're really struggling. So thank you for coming and spending the morning with me. My name's Gina. I am an attorney at Housing and Economic Rights Advocates. We're a legal nonprofit based, our main office is in downtown Oakland, although we serve the entire state. I've been with the organization for about 10 years now, and I lead the homeowner team, and we work on a variety of issues in the office. It's a consumer rights organization, so what that means is if there are debt or credit issues that are happening, especially if there's a legal aspect to it, it's something that we can help you with. Our services are free. I will provide our contact information at the end and go over a lot of the services that we provide. So feel free to reach out to us. At the end of the presentation, if you came here and you think that you would like some one-on-one advice or a quick consultation, or if you think you're going to need some extra assistance, we're going to be meeting with everybody or whoever's interested one-on-one at the end of the presentation. We'll get your contact information and some information about what's going on with you, and then we can connect you to get some advice with one of our attorneys. Sometimes it's a quick consult, and I could try and tackle that here. Sometimes it may require some assistance, which can take some time. But as I said, our services are free, so feel free to reach out to us afterwards, and we'll see if we can give you some one-on-one assistance as well. So today, we're going to be talking about homeowner issues, especially having to do with preserving the home, keeping on top of all of the expenses that come with owning a home. If you're facing foreclosure, I'm going to give you some advice about what that looks like, what the timeline is, which can be very helpful to some people to know really what they're working with and what your options and rights are around the home. So when I say homeowner, our homeowner team, we really work on almost anything having to do with one of these items up here listed, because all of these are items that you have to cover when you are a homeowner. You're going to have your mortgage likely, unless you've managed to pay it off at this point, property taxes, homeowner's insurance. Sometimes we get questions about escrow accounts, meaning that you pay your property taxes and or insurance through your mortgage company. We get questions about homeowners associations and HOA dues or HOA issues a lot. And then we also get a lot of questions about maintenance and repair, affording the repairs. We get a lot. We have some attorneys in the office who specialize specifically on clean energy home repairs or upgrades that maybe have gone south. For example, you'll hear a lot about solar panels these days, or people coming to your home and trying to convince you to put solar panels on your roof, and maybe there's a finance agreement that you get yourself into that you didn't understand, or maybe wasn't as good as you thought it was. We have a lot of attorneys who focus on those issues as well. And so we're here to help everyone understand both what their options are for keeping the home, but also to understand if they're trying to decide if they're going to use a particular financial product, or if they're really interested in, let's say, doing a solar panel upgrade, to make sure that they're doing it in a way that's informed and educated so that you're making the best decision for yourself. The problem is any one of these really can eventually trigger a foreclosure depending on what happened. If you fall behind on your mortgage, you can lose your home to foreclosure. Same thing with property taxes. If you fall behind on your property taxes, it can trigger a foreclosure. Depending on what type of loan you have, falling behind on your homeowner's insurance can trigger a foreclosure. Escrow account issues can go awry, and then HOAs, homeowners associations, also can cause a foreclosure depending on what kind of delinquency you have. Or let's say you have some type of maintenance issue where you did have one of these solar panel agreements or solar power agreements. Sometimes those can make your property taxes skyrocket to the point where it's not affordable. We see all of these types of issues. So please, if any of these are impacting you, reach out and get some one-on-one advice. So as I said, I wanted to make sure, especially for those of you who think you might be headed towards the foreclosure route or you're worried about it, I think it's really important to know what the timeline is. Because a big source of stress is just not knowing what can happen. Let's say you hit a bump in the road. What does that look like? What can happen if I do fall into some type of hardship? So this is the most common foreclosure timeline. It has to do with mortgages. So if you fall behind on a mortgage or a loan, a home equity line of credit, really any mortgage or loan connected to the house, that's what this timeline will look like. So what happens is when you first fall behind on one of these loans, you're not going to lose your house the very next month. What will happen is that your lender will wait at least 4 months before they will record a foreclosure notice. They will try and contact you. They may send you notices that say notice of delinquency or notice of default, but they're not going to record a foreclosure notice until you're at least 4 months behind. Then, depending on who your loan company is, they can record the first foreclosure notice. It's called a notice of default. Now, the notice of default that I'm referring to is an official legal document. They all look the same. It will say notice of default, an election to sell at the top of the middle of the document. It has a stamp usually because those documents get recorded with the county recorder's office. So if you get one of these notices of default, you may suddenly realize, hey, I have a lot of people showing up at my house. They're offering to buy my home. I'm getting a lot of solicitation mail for rescue services. And the reason is because that first foreclosure notice, because it's recorded with the county, it's public record. So unfortunately, what that means is a lot of scammers or people trying to get a really cheap home, whatever that means in the Bay Area, which isn't anything, but they're trying to get a deal on a home. So they see that someone's struggling. It's been recorded in the county that they're a potential foreclosure risk, and so then they start contacting you. So I'm just putting that out there. If you are already at that stage or you're facing this, that's the reason why that's happening, is because that foreclosure notice is public record. After that notice of default gets recorded, then what will happen is the lender has to give you at least 90 days to try and bring that delinquency current. So nothing's really going to happen for that next 90 days. It gives you an opportunity to try and work with your lender or see if there's any services that are available to get you back on track, but they're not going to do anything for 90 days. After 90 days, then what they can do is record that second foreclosure notice. It's called a notice of trustee sale, and that notice will tell you when they're planning on putting your home up for auction, like the location and the time of the sale. That sale date cannot happen sooner than 20 days after that notice. So if we're all following along, I know it's early on a Saturday, but if you're doing the math with me, it's 4 months, then the first foreclosure notice, then another 3 months, then the second foreclosure notice, and then 20 days before you're going to go to a sale. So what that means is if you fell behind and this is your first month behind, you've got about 7 months to work with, and that's if you're on the fast track. So it's a longer process for homeowners, but the point is, you have the time, so reach out, see what resources are available to you, because there are a lot of options for dealing with hardships. All right, so here's some of the things that we will go over with homeowners when they come to our office. Let's say they haven't fallen behind, but they're struggling, or they are already behind. Here are all the different options that I'll probably consider when someone meets with me. The first one I get a lot of questions about is refinance. I'm sure a lot of you, this was a big hot topic back in the fall when rates were, a year ago really, when rates were much lower. It's not as common now because the interest rates are so much higher, so refinance doesn't tend to be as good of an option right now. For those of you who aren't sure, what a refinance is, it's just when you go out, you get a whole new loan. You pay off the loan that is currently sitting on the property, or maybe you have multiple loans that are sitting on the property, and now you have a new loan, sometimes with a new lender or the same lender, completely new terms, new interest rate, new length of the loan. Brand new thing. It's like you paid off the old one and now you have a brand new loan to deal with. That's what a refinance is. Typically, if you've already fallen behind on your mortgage payments, or if your credit is not as great, a refinance is probably not going to be your best bet. Because with a refinance, because it is a brand new loan, You need to show that that your credit is acceptable, that you're a safe bet when it comes to creditors. So refinance is probably not an option if you're delinquent. What I tell people is, if you've had a delinquency within the last 12 months, probably not an option. But if you can keep your loan current for at least 12 months, then I would say maybe refinance is now an option for you. So that's usually the metric I use. If you've fallen behind in the past, if you've been current for at least 12 months, that's what I'm looking for. A reinstatement, the second option, it's just when you find the funds to completely pay off that delinquent balance, how much you've fallen behind, and now you're back on track. Your payments are as they were. You're not going to get any more delinquency or foreclosure notices. Your loan is brought current. Now, fortunately, that's usually not the option. If you had the money to reinstate out of pocket, you probably would have. The good news is there are a lot of state and local programs out there right now to help with reinstatement, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And so right now, if you need reinstatement funds, if you want to keep your current loan terms and you just need help bringing the loan current, now is a good time because there's funds out there. The third option, historically, although it's probably the least common option, is a repayment plan. So let's say you fell behind by a couple months, and then you reach out to your mortgage company or your lender, and you say, I want to get back on track. I don't want to be in default anymore. They'll say, all right, we'll give you a payment plan. You have to pay your regular monthly payments, and in addition, you have to pay a little bit towards the delinquent balance. And it's an agreement to basically get you reinstated. Most homeowners that I know, it's not usually a good option for them because that extra amount you have to pay on top of your regular mortgage payment is just too expensive, but it is an option. Another option is forbearance. So what forbearance is either a temporary pause in your payments or reduction in your payments. Now, historically, I haven't really liked forbearance as an option for most people because the traditional way of forbearance works is that at the end of your forbearance period, you have to pay back everything that you weren't paying during that period. So for example, let's say you got a 6-month forbearance plan. At the end of that 6 months, you would have to pay 6 months worth of mortgage payments at the end of the plan, which most people cannot swing. So I usually would not recommend those types of plans for anybody unless you think, for example, you have income that fluctuates a lot, and you know that there's a decent amount of income that's going to be coming shortly, and you can make up those missed payments, then a forbearance plan might be an option. There is a COVID-19 forbearance option for certain types of loans, which we're going to talk about, which does not require payment at the end of the forbearance plan. So while traditionally forbearance plans are usually not a great option, some of these new COVID-19 forbearance plans might be an option for you. So I'll talk about that in just a second. The next option is probably one of the most common options that we will explore with our homeowners to keep the home, and that's a loan modification. So the difference between a refinance and a loan modification is a refinance is when you go and you take out a whole new loan. It's like you start afresh. A loan modification is where your lender works with you to tinker with the terms of your current loan to try and make the payments more affordable because maybe you've experienced some type of financial hardship. Your income is not as high as it was when you first took out the loan. So your lender works with you to change the terms of your loan so that you can afford to keep that loan and get back on track. We're going to talk about these at length because traditionally they're a viable option to keep the home. It's a little bit tricky right now, again, because of interest rates. So right now we're working in a very unusual time because those interest rates are making the options a little bit more challenging, but we'll still talk about what that looks like and how it works. And then the last option, it's not really my favorite option. I put it up there because technically it is sometimes a way that people change the terms of their loan. If you've had an issue with your mortgage company and they've committed a lot of errors on your account, or let's say they mishandled your account in a pretty egregious way, sometimes you might be a candidate for litigation. And as part of that process, in settling with a mortgage company, sometimes they will offer to change the terms of your loan or maybe waive certain amounts. And so technically that might be an avenue to change the terms of your loan, but realistically, and I'm saying this as a lawyer, I don't necessarily recommend that that's going to be your top option or the most common option, but I just put it out there as that's technically sometimes an avenue for changing the terms of your loan. So going back to talk a little bit more about if you've faced a hardship because of COVID-19, so you've had a loss of income, you had more out-of-pocket expenses, you had to take time off of work to care for somebody with COVID, you weren't able to come in because of COVID and you had to take unpaid leave, then depending on the type of loan you have, there are quite a few options still out there. Most of the options, though, are for those of you who have a government-backed or government-insured loan. When I say that, I mean, and you will probably recognize some of these terms, if you have a loan that is a Freddie Mac or a Fannie Mae or an FHA loan from HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or a VA loan for veterans and service members, those types of loans, and they are way more common than I think you realize, have a lot more protections in place right now if you have experienced a COVID-19 hardship. Each one of those different entities has a different series of options that they will run your loan through. If you call up your mortgage company or your lender and you say, I've experienced a COVID-19 hardship, they are supposed to run you through that series of options. One of the things we help folks do in our office is to help you figure out, one, is your loan a government-backed or government-insured loan? And we can go through and help you explore if that's the case, and it is pretty common. If you do not have a government-backed or government-insured loan, a lot of loan companies, mortgage companies right now are offering options, but it's piecemeal. It depends on who the loan company is or the servicer is. So if you are in this scenario, I would strongly recommend you meet with one of our attorneys because we will go through and explore what type of loan you have, what your options are, what you should have been offered, what might be available to you because of your hardship. And we already talked about forbearances, so I'm going to skip that one. Okay, so loan modifications. As I said, traditionally, loan modifications is the most common way that homeowners will work with their current lender to try and get back on track. Some of the things that are going to impact whether or not you're a good candidate for a loan modification or not are how far behind are you? What's your default status? We have some individuals who will come to our office and they've been delinquent for 5 or 6 years. I know that sounds amazing because, you know, as I said before, the fast timeline is 7 months. So you think, oh, this person's been delinquent for that long. Well, it happens. And so when someone has been delinquent that long, that balance, that delinquent balance, is now pretty substantial with all of the fees and costs. And so in those circumstances, it can be much harder to get a loan mod, but we still will run the numbers and see if that person looks like a possible candidate. The other factor that can often impact whether or not you're going to get a loan modification is if your property is what we call underwater or if there's equity. When a property is underwater, what that means is that the amount that you owe on your loans and liens on the house exceeds what the fair market value is of your home. If you were to sell your house today, if you owe more money to all of those loans than what your house is worth, we call that underwater. If in the reverse, if your property is worth significantly more than all of the loans and liens on your home, that means you have equity. If you sold the house today and you paid off all of your loans, you would walk away with some money. And so what some lenders will do when they're figuring out if they're going to work with you is that if you have a lot of equity in your home, especially for a loan that's not government-backed, sometimes what the lender will say is, well, if we foreclosed on you, we'd probably get our money back, and so we're not going to work with this person because we're likely going to get all of our money back right away. Now, if you have a loan that's the reverse, where you have a lot of debt compared to what the house is worth, the lender is more likely going to want to work with you, because if they sold the home at a foreclosure, they may not get all their money back. And that's the thing with foreclosure, is the lender only gets what they get at that auction. It may not be the full balance of the loan, so they're more likely to work with you. These are not guarantees. It's not that everybody with equity won't get a mod. I get plenty of clients who have equity in their home who are still eligible for modification. I'm just letting you know these are some of the factors that a mortgage company will think about. Another factor is going to be sustainability, because a modification's goal is to bring your loan payment to a new affordable level for you. Let's say your payments were previously $4,000 a month, but your income has dropped, so maybe they're going to try and reduce your monthly payments to only a portion of your new income. If they have to reduce your payments to a level that's too low, the mortgage company, they will say that it's not possible for them to work with you, because they'd have to reduce your payments to too low of a level. But if you're in kind of a sweet spot, depending on how much they have to lower the payments, then they're more likely to work with you. So one of the benefits of talking to someone and getting some legal advice, especially from our offices, we can give you an idea if you're kind of roughly in the ballpark, if we think you have a chance of potentially getting a mod, depending on what your income and your loan looks like. The last few things I will say about loan modifications, and this is actually really important, if you are getting close to a foreclosure date, and you've been really working with your mortgage company, and I have now been doing this for a decade, so I've seen a lot of stories. But if you think that your mortgage company's, keeps losing your paperwork or is not working with you, and they're moving forward with foreclosure, in California, if you can submit a complete loan modification application at least 5 business days before your sale, then a mortgage company is supposed to pause any foreclosure activity, review your application, give you a decision, give you an opportunity to appeal that decision before moving forward with the foreclosure sale. So if you are someone who you didn't realize there's all these resources available to you and you're about to head into foreclosure, make sure you submit a complete loan modification application. And the next slide, I'll tell you what I think that includes. And make sure you get it in, because then it pumps the brakes on what your mortgage company is doing. And this is very important and very powerful information, because sometimes lenders are really difficult or they're dismissive when you're facing a foreclosure sale, and it can be a way to buy you a little bit more time to explore some options that are currently out there. It would be illegal if you submitted that application and they went ahead and moved forward with the sale. It does happen. So I'm just letting you know what your rights are. If you have a complete application submitted 5 business days before sale, they're supposed to review you for that application and that option first before moving forward with foreclosure. So please keep that in mind. So when I say complete application, this is what I mean. Now, every lender may ask for something slightly different or in addition to these list of documents. But this, 6 bullet points here, these are really the main things that a mortgage company or lender is looking for when you ask for a loan modification. The first one is called a request for mortgage assistance. We call them RMAs for short. It's really just the application packet itself that the lender will send you. You fill in your information, address, your income information, information about other loans you may have. It's usually about 5 or 6 pages. They will also ask you for your most recent income tax return, so your 1040. If you haven't filed your income taxes in a long time, there are still ways around it. You can write a letter of explanation. Let's say you're on a fixed income, you're below the mandated reporting threshold for income taxes. You can write a letter, especially if you're a senior and you're on Social Security or some type of fixed pension or fixed income. Usually a letter will suffice, but they will ask for your income tax returns. They will usually also have you fill out what's called a 4506C form. It's just an IRS form where you're giving them permission to pull any of your income tax return information for the last few years. Usually it's 4 years. It's a pretty straightforward form. And like I said, we help homeowners through this process. So if you're going through this and you really don't understand what any of this means or what the forms, how you to properly fill out the forms, you can feel free to reach out and we can give you guidance on that. The next one is proof of income for at least the last 2 months. Unfortunately, this tends to be the trickiest one for most people because, you may have, let's say, a pension and Social Security, but sometimes you may also have rental income. How do I document that? Maybe I have, I earn my own income. I have a small business. How do I document that? And so we can work with you. Your lender usually will tell you what specific documentation they want to see for your income, but I can tell you for the most part, for Social Security, pension, or any of those consistent incomes, they're looking for your award letters that you usually get once per year. That's what they want. If you're still working and you get earned income, they're looking for the last 2 months of pay stubs. If you are renting a unit in your home, they want a copy of your rental agreement. So that usually is the biggest hurdle. So if you're really struggling on how to document your income, that would be a good scenario where you want to reach out for a little bit of extra assistance. They will also ask for a copy of your 2 most recent bank statements. So really the last 2 months of bank statements for every account you are on. And here's the trick. Make sure when you submit those bank statements, you include every single page of the bank statement, including the blank pages. I cannot tell you how many times I have had lenders reject applications because someone submitted a bank statement where it says on the bottom 6 out of 6 or 6 pages, and they only submit 5 out of 6 pages because the last page was blank. Submit the blank pages of your bank statement. It's really important. And then the last one is that you probably want to provide documentation from any non-borrower contributors. Some may have kids or caregivers who provide a little bit of extra funding. I have a lot of clients who are seniors where their kids give them a couple $100s a month to help with groceries or what have you. So we want to make sure we document that as well as potential income for a loan modification. Just a word of warning. When you submit these applications, keep proof. Send them by fax or email, something that you can track, because unfortunately, the reality is most mortgage companies, they'll say they didn't get it or they got missing pages, and you really want to be able to say, yes, I sent X, Y, and Z documents on this date. Keep really, really, really good records when you're going through this process, because we get lots of calls from homeowners who say, I sent them this, and then they said 3 months later they didn't get it, or that I need to send it, or they never received it. And then I'll say, well, go back, show your records, show that you sent it in as proof that you had sent in the required documentation. This can be really, really critical if you're bumping up against a foreclosure deadline. And then, I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to say this, of course. Keep your documents. Keep your paperwork. I never complain. When I have clients who say, oh, I keep my statements for like the last 5 years, and I say, not a problem for me. I'm good with it. I love it when clients have paperwork. Keep your documents, or at least scans of them. It's very helpful in this process. If you're somebody who struggles with that, or if you struggle with knowing where to go to get your paperwork, we can work with you too. I have lots of clients where they don't know how to get proof of their pension, or they don't know how to get proof of Social Security benefits, or how to document something. We'll work with you and help you put together your paperwork if you need that help as well. Okay, so that's for mortgages. And like I said, at the end, I'm going to be talking about the state and local assistance that's out there for reinstatement. But those are the options. Let's say that if there weren't funds out there to help people, those are the options I normally will walk through with somebody. Now for property taxes, if you fall behind on your property taxes, the timeline's slightly different. Now, if you pay your property taxes through your mortgage company and you fall behind on your mortgage, that's the original timeline I gave you, because you pay through your mortgage company. If you pay your property taxes directly to the county, that's what I'm talking about here in these slides. So if you pay your property taxes directly to the county is not going to do anything until you're at least 5 years behind. They're not going to move forward with a sale or an attempt to sale until you're at least 5 years behind. What does that mean? Well, you have some time to work with the county. Now, that delinquency in property taxes, your mortgage company, if you still have a mortgage company, may find out, hey, you've fallen behind on your property taxes, so we're going to pay them for you, and now you got to deal with your mortgage company. But if that doesn't happen, 5 years. The county tax collector's office does offer payment plans. The way they work, they're 5-year plans where you have to effectively pay back 20% of your delinquent balance for each year of that 5-year plan, in addition to your regular property tax payments, which is very expensive for most people. But they do offer those payment plans. Once you hit that 5-year mark, though, and the county sends you something called a notice of intent to sell, at that point, you're not eligible for a payment plan with the county anymore, and you'll have to find another option to try and reinstate. But it's not going to be through the county. Some of the programs I'm going to be talking about, the reinstatement programs, do help with property taxes, so that's the good news. Like I said, there's options out there right now, so if you've got a property tax delinquency, now is the time to address it. Other issues with property taxes I just want to touch on. You know, there's ways to reinstate and bring your property taxes current, but sometimes we get clients who call because they either inherited the home or they've transferred the home to a family member or a friend, and all of a sudden they notice that their property tax bill spikes. And that's because if you don't submit the proper paperwork by transferring the title to your home to a new person, trigger what's called a reassessment of your property taxes, and all of a sudden your property taxes will jump. So, for example, let's say you bought your home in the 80s, and your property taxes are quite low, and then you transfer even a portion of your home to your daughter, let's say 50%, and you don't fill out the right paperwork. What the county will do is they will look at her 50% of the property now, and they will reassess the property value at the current market value. And now 50% of the home's property taxes are going to be significantly higher. It can be thousands of dollars in difference than what they previously were. There are ways to appeal that if it happens. There are ways to address it if it happens. Not all transfers are protected. Not all family transfers between siblings, that's not protected. So these are the things. I bring this up not because I'm expecting you to remember which transfers are protected and which aren't. It's to flag for you. If you're thinking about transferring your home to somebody, if you're thinking about doing any estate planning, what have you, make sure you talk to somebody. Feel free to call our office so that we can walk you through what might happen during those transfers with your property taxes, or if it's already happened, what your options are for addressing it. So I just want to flag that for some of you. And then the last thing is for future property taxes. Let's say that you manage to get on top of your property taxes, you're current again, but you're really struggling. So in California, for certain groups, there are some options. There is something called the California Property Tax Postponement Program. If you're a senior or if you're disabled, you can apply for this program in the fall. And what will happen is that the state will effectively pay county your property taxes for you, and then the state gets a lien against your property for that amount of property taxes. And the reason this program is out there is for someone who, let's say they have a home, maybe they even paid off the mortgages on their property, but they're very low income. But their property taxes are still much too expensive for the income that they have. This program is meant to allow someone who's very low income but who has this home, this asset, to be able to stay in the home but not lose it because they can't afford the ongoing property tax payments. So that might be an option. Now, not everybody loves this option because the state currently will charge a simple interest of 5% on those liens. But let's say you're a senior and you really can't afford to pay your property taxes. Sometimes it comes down to, do I sell my home and I walk away with the equity that was in the property, or do I effectively borrow $10,000 from the state at 5% interest, and those liens don't have to get paid until you either move, sell the house, refinance, or you pass. So you don't have to pay back that money until one of those triggering events happens. So it is sometimes a viable way for someone who's on very low income to be able to stay in their home and deal with the property taxes. Just briefly, do we have anybody here who's in a homeowners association? Okay, so just to let you know, I do a lot of homeowners association work. But today what I'm going to talk about is just if you've fallen behind specifically on your homeowners association assessments. Usually you pay your HOA monthly or quarterly. In California, the HOA can foreclose on your property if you fall at least $1,800 behind on your assessments or you're more than 12 months delinquent. That's the foreclosure threshold. So let's say that your monthly dues are $500 a month. If you fall behind 4 months, you've reached that threshold. Now, what a homeowners association will do, that timeline, because it depends on how much you owe the HOA, that the foreclosure timeline is not as clear and as crisp as it was with the mortgages, but generally what it looks like is you fall behind, your HOA will send you a notice saying, you're falling behind, we're going to put a lien on your property. So you can either pay us your delinquent assessments now, or we're going to put a lien on your home. If you don't pay, they'll put a lien on your home, and then once you reach that threshold amount of $1,800 or 12 months delinquency, they'll record that first foreclosure notice, a notice of default, then they wait the 3 months until the next foreclosure notice. So that's what the timeline looks like if you're in an HOA. Some of the funds locally do help with HOA delinquencies. So if that's you, please reach out because we can assess you for those funds. Just a few more things before I move off of homeowners associations. You have a right to make partial payments. Don't let an HOA tell you that they're going to reject your payment if you don't pay the full balance owed. By law, they are required to accept any payments you make. And they have to apply those payments towards your delinquent assessment balance first before anything else. So if you pay an HOA and they take that money that you paid and they apply it towards collection costs or some other fine or penalty that you may have with them before your assessments, that's illegal. Please reach out to our office for some assistance. Okay, here's the thing I really want to talk about today because it's the kind of bright news right now is these reinstatement funds that are out there. So first, as many of you may be aware, in California, we have the California Mortgage Reinstatement Assistance Program that's out there right now. These funds, if you're behind on your mortgage payments and you experience the COVID-19 hardship, you can get up to $80,000 in reinstatement assistance. And these are grants. These are not loans. You do not have to pay these funds back. So definitely something as a potential option if you are behind on your mortgage. They also just opened up this program to property taxes, up to $20,000 in assistance for delinquent property taxes. So if you're behind on either your first mortgage or your property taxes, and you experience a COVID-19 hardship, this might be an option for you. And I will say, just so you know, our organization gets both funds from this program and all the local programs I'm about to talk to, and that's what we're here for, is to evaluate you for what's a good option for you. So if you call us, we will run you through your particular scenario through every single possible program to see what you're eligible for. So if you're confused about all this criteria, just know that's what we're here for, is to help you figure out which programs we think would be a best fit for you, what's going to put you in the best situation, where can the funds come from. So I just want to let you know that. The California mortgage program may open up to other types of loans. For example, right now they're just doing first mortgages and property taxes. They may tackle some other types of home loans down the line, depending on how quickly these funds get spent. So just keep that in mind. The program rules have been changing, and they change every couple months. So if maybe you weren't previously eligible, check the current criteria, because maybe they've expanded the program by the time you need them. I just want to put that out there. California is one of the few states where I think we've only used about 30-something% of the funds that we have, and there's a lot more money out there. So it's still going strong for that program. The other two programs are local. I'm assuming most people that are here are Alameda County residents. So in Alameda County, there's actually 2 county grant programs that our organization is responsible for administering. One covers the entire county, and it's for $30,000 of reinstatement assistance. And you can get that assistance for any delinquency that includes your mortgage, property taxes, homeowners association delinquencies, if you have a home equity line of credit that's in default, if you have a judgment that's being enforced. The criteria is pretty broad. So that's $30,000 for the all countywide program. If you are interested in more details on that, please reach out to our organization. We'll evaluate you for that. The other program, it's called the Emergency Mortgage Relief Program, which is for certain parts of the county, including Albany, Dublin, Emeryville, Newark, Piedmont, and unincorporated parts of Alameda County. So if you own a home in one of these areas, you could be eligible for an additional up to $30,000 of assistance. And these funds also can be used for first and second mortgages, homeowners association dues, property taxes, delinquent homeowners insurance, and if you have a mobile home, if you're behind on your mobile home rent, it can be used for that as well. I'll put the information for our website, and you can get on our website, we have in very fine detail all of the different categories of delinquencies that can be covered by the program. But I just wanted to put that out there. They recently expanded the program. These funds are meant for folks who have experienced a COVID-19 hardship. So the Alameda County-wide ones, you have to have a hardship, but it does not have to be COVID-19 related. For these funds, the Emergency Mortgage Assistance Funds, it has to be a COVID-19 hardship. So I just wanted to flag that for some of you. It is meant for low to moderate income homeowners, but in Alameda County, that threshold is decently high. So if you think you might be borderline, please reach out to see if you're eligible. And then depending on which program you apply for, one of the criteria we may ask is, did you try and work with either your lender or the county or your HOA to get on some type of repayment program through them? If you did and you either denied or it's just not affordable, then you can still get the funds. We just want to know, have you tried to work this through with that other creditor first? Here's, if you want to apply, and frankly, for any of the programs I've just talked about, if you're interested in applying, feel free to reach out to our office and we'll walk you through the specific application criteria. This is for the urban county, the one that's specific to certain jurisdictions. This is the link. If you go on here, you can submit the application online through this link here. And then you can also just give us a call at that 510-271-8443 number. And since I know some of you are probably very eager to apply, here's the documentation that you will likely be asked for. And frankly, this is documentation you'll probably be asked for no matter what program you apply for. So you're probably going to need photo ID for all title holders on the property, proof of income for your household, proof of your primary residence, which is relatively easy to do, so I wouldn't stress about that one. If it's your primary residence, you can even write an affidavit saying as much. Proof of your hardship. If it's certain applications, it would be a COVID-19 hardship. A copy of your most recent mortgage statement, or let's say it's HOA related or property tax related, a copy of your most recent statement from one of those. And then depending on the program, for example, this one, we want to see a copy of the statement you received around March of 2020, and that is because these particular funds are meant for folks who have faced a COVID-19 hardship. So we want to see if you were current or delinquent as of March 2020. That's the metric for this program. Okay. A few more things, and then as I said before, we will provide paperwork and do some quick consults and also get the ball rolling if you want to be connected to one of our attorneys for one-on-one legal advice and assistance. But just a few more things before we do that. I just want to touch on bankruptcy, which I know is a very scary concept for most people, but bankruptcy technically might be an option depending on what's going on with your scenario. We don't practice bankruptcy in our office. However, we can usually tell you if we think bankruptcy might be a good option for you. In bankruptcy, the way it works is that it's a way to deal with your creditors, to put a pause on all of the different things that are happening. So if you're facing foreclosure and you think either you might be eligible for a certain payment plan in bankruptcy or even eligible for some of these programs we've just discussed, and you need time, filing for bankruptcy is one way to force a pause of the foreclosure activity in order to give you time to do it. I do not recommend it as a first option. It's usually, for me, the last option, but it is technically an option. When someone calls our office and says, I'm going to go to foreclosure in 3 days, at that point, usually bankruptcy is the one move that you can still do to force a pause on that foreclosure to be able to be evaluated for ways to save the home. Some advantages of bankruptcy is that in addition to putting a pause on the foreclosure, depending on what types of loans and the amounts owed on the that are there on the property, there might be a way to what we call lien strip. So if you have a first mortgage and a second lien and you owe more than what the home is worth, there might be a way to get that lien pulled off, the junior lien, the smaller lien pulled off the home in bankruptcy. So these are things a bankruptcy attorney can talk about with you, but I just want to flag it as it is potentially an option to keep your home. But like I said, I think it's the last worst case scenario, but it is an option. And then finally, just to be aware, because I did mention this at the beginning of the presentation, the foreclosure process is public record, which means, unfortunately, there's a lot of scammers out there who troll the public records to see who's struggling, and there are a lot of scammers out there who will send you notices saying, we can help you save your home. They will demand upfront payment. And sometimes they'll even send notices that look like they come from your mortgage company. They'll reference your mortgage company in their notice, and they're not. So if you get a notice like that and you want someone to look at it and tell you, yes, this looks legitimate, or no, it's not, please feel free to call our office. There's really no reason to pay for these services. Our office does them for free, and we're actual attorneys. So there's no reason to sign up for these services. A lot of them are scammers. What they do is they charge an upfront fee telling you that they're going to help you with a loan modification. That's illegal in California. You're not allowed to charge an upfront fee to help someone apply for a loan modification or loss mitigation. If that is offered to you, it's a scam. We get a lot of, unfortunately, homeowners who thought they were paying this company to help them, started making their mortgage payments through that company, and then a few months down the line realized that $10,000, $20,000 went to the scam operation, and it's not easy to recover that money, and then their mortgage company's still foreclosing. So please be aware that there are scams out there. They promise to reduce your loan balance, if they promise to fix your credit to a certain degree, if they make offers to buy your house temporarily and sell it back to you, if they promise to file a lawsuit as leverage just to get your lenders to negotiate with you, if they rush you to sign paperwork you don't understand, if they tell you to send your payments to them as opposed to your mortgage company, or to stop talking to your mortgage company and only talk to them, these are red flags. It's probably a scam. Please be careful, because the last thing you need is to already be facing hardship and then to get into even more hot water. Okay, as promised, here's a list of some of the services that we provide at our office. All of them are free, except our estate planning services at the very bottom. Those we charge on a sliding scale, meaning if you're very low income, our services are very low cost or free. But everything else is free. So we do all sorts of debt collection work. If you have student loans, auto loans, medical debt, personal loans, payday loans, homeowners association debt. If you have issues with credit reporting, understanding your credit report, errors on your credit report, if you've been a victim of identity theft, if you've been denied a loan because of poor credit, if you are having questions about credit building products or rebuilding your credit after maybe a bankruptcy, if you're facing foreclosure or have any of those homeowner issues that we talked about today, if are a service member or a family of a service member, sometimes there's some extra services out there. All of those things we provide for free. Free legal advice, everybody that you would get one-on-one consultation with is an attorney. And then estate planning. As I said, that is done on a sliding scale. We do wills, trusts, healthcare directives. So if you're very low income, it could be as little as just the recording cost to put your home in a trust, which is, I think the county recorder's fee is about $100 and, don't quote me on this, I think it's like $160 something or so, which most estate plans cost about $2,500 to $3,000. So it can make a big difference to be able to get some affordable estate planning done. And with that, for those of you, first, let me just say, if you have some clarification questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is, my colleague Vanessa over there, we're going to hand out some paperwork. If you would like to meet with us one-on-one briefly to see if you have questions that just need a quick answer, or if you're interested in getting connected with one of our attorneys for some personal advice, if you want to meet with someone to say, here's all my documentation, what are my options, and get some one-on-one legal advice, we're going to hand out some paperwork for you to fill out and get you connected with one of our attorneys. So if that's what you'd like to do, that's what we're here for. Otherwise, thanks again for spending your morning with me, and I hope that we can.
How does if some people do the reverse mortgage in bankruptcy, is that more complicated?
If they do a reverse mortgage while they're in bankruptcy, and I just want to let everybody know, the presentation's done, I'm just going to field some basic questions now. So if you're taking out a reverse mortgage in a bankruptcy, then that process might impact your bankruptcy, but if you took out the reverse prior to the bankruptcy, different options. If you're thinking about taking out a reverse, that is something that we can talk about. For those of you who don't know, reverse mortgages are meant for seniors, individuals who are 62 years or older. And the way a reverse mortgage works is that instead of a traditional mortgage where you owe money and you make payments to pay down that balance every month, a reverse mortgage is the loan balance stays and then grows every month. You don't pay to the reverse mortgage every month. The loan balance just grows and grows and grows. And then it's not due and payable until either you pass away, you're no longer living in the home, or you, refinance or sell the home. So we can talk to you about whether or not we think that's a good option for you. You still have some responsibilities when you take out a reverse mortgage, and we want to make sure that everybody's really informed before they do that. Any other?
Do you folks make house calls? I have a friend who probably cannot get out of her house.
Yeah, we do. Depending on the scenario, if we have someone who's homebound and they can't get out, we will have attorneys who will go and do house visits. I did one here in Albany not that long ago. So yes, it is an option. If we have somebody who's close by, otherwise we'll find a way to get connected.
Where are you located at?
Our main office is in Oakland, but we serve the entire state. A lot of our attorneys work remotely, so we have attorneys who actually live all over the state as well. So, most of us are here in the Bay Area.
Is there one in Albany, or they come to your home and discuss this, or do you have to go to Oakland to go?
That's a good question. Almost everything that we do can be done remotely. It's pretty unusual there's not too many scenarios where you even have to come into the office, but if you need to meet, then we can either do a home visit or arrange to have you come to our Oakland office. Just depends on the scenario.
Where are you located?
Oakland, down like on 40th and Broadway, kind of near the Kaiser building on Broadway.
Parking? Is there no parking?
We do have parking here.